everybody. Welcome to
Wait, what?
Sports. I am Gina.
I'm Amy.
Dr. Robinson.
See, this time I made sure that we wouldn't forget to do that part, because when we get off into talking, then it's a done deal.
By the way, I already have a random tangent because I completely forgot about this when we first walked into the studio.
What?
I discovered why Eeyore's name is Eeyore.
Why is it Eeyore?
So I was watching, of course, my British television shows, and somebody was showing the they had found a statue of a donkey, and the narrator made a donkey sound. Now, Eli, what sound does a donkey make in the U.S.?
Hee-haw.
Hee-haw, right?
Right.
In Britain, donkeys go, Eeyore! Eeyore!
Why?
Instead of hee-haw.
That was a double baby. The fan kicked on behind me. And then you went, Eeyore!
But, okay, so here we think of a donkey as hee-haw.
Why?
Hee-haw. And there it says Eeyore.
So
Eeyore, the donkey.
is the sound that he makes.
Yes.
Wait, was the guy
Could
who made
we?
Winnie the Pooh British?
Yes.
I did not know
A.A.
that.
Milne.
Could we?
What? All right, Eeyore, sorry.
That's okay, guys. I'll just go put my tail back on.
I'll just put my tail back on. Let me turn off my microphone.
We've made him not only facepalm, but he's like an
I
extended.
think he's just kind of turned off now. He went into power save mode for a minute.
we have to boot him back up. But it's a very good transition from that to what we're doing today, because
Yes.
we're very British focused today.
Quite. You had to get ready for that. You knew it was coming.
By the way,
Somebody kill me.
Eli hates when Gina tries to put on a British accent.
That's because I do it so convincingly. You know you love it. It's okay.
Mine winds up slightly Scottish for some reason.
Which
I'm
is
not
a
certain
weird
why.
transition. I can see Australian before Scottish.
I don't know. There's like a brogue to mine, which is a little bit more Scottish or Irish, but that's okay.
It's all right. I'll keep the...
For Eli, I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're all fairly convinced that you will not actually put that pen through your neck.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You can't. I don't have the life insurance policy yet.
Wow. That's good to know. Anyways.
Still, we're doing a very British show today because we are talking about cricket.
Crickets.
Which, in America, we're like, yeah, it's just a weird form of baseball, right?
Listen, that is the exact conversation that me and Amy had when we started talking about this. I was just like, it's British baseball. And then she was like, no. Absolutely not, Gene.
I mean, honestly, until I started watching a ton of British television, which
Yeah.
I've always watched some, but until I started watching a lot of it,
And got exposed to it.
I did not realize exactly how different cricket was. I mean, I knew it was different and it had different equipment.
Right.
And, but I didn't realize, like, the intricacies of it. Like, if you thought baseball had a lot.
No. Baseball seems like kindergarten. And this is like advanced, like, master's degree calculus to me.
And the only thing that I could say is that I could see this actually being even more popular than baseball only because of ease of being able to play. Like we've said before, this game is huge in India.
Yeah.
But because you only need a stretch that's 66 feet long and a stick to hit, a ball to throw, 3 sticks that you put in the ground on one end of the 66 foot length that have little, I call them, they look like thread bobbins.
They do.
They do have special names. We'll get into that. But they look like thread bobbins that are on top of the 3 sticks. And that's all the equipment you need in order to play.
What is it called? Thread bobbins?
Yeah, so
Say that 5 times.
Here we go. You were so good when you were quiet. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the accent just because you're being difficult.
Oh, my God.
It was going to be good, but now you've ruined it.
I mean, if he really makes it a thing, I say I break out into, a spoonful of sugar.
Yes. He has no idea what you're talking about because he's never seen
What
that.
the heck is that?
Mary Poppins?
He's never seen Mary Poppins.
You've never seen
Okay,
Mary
you got one more
Poppins?
time. I'm gonna ring this dog on bail. Every time you say it, I'm not playing around here.
Oh, this is for yesterday. He told me. He told me that he falls asleep when we're in here. So guess what? It's not going to happen today, is it?
But Mary Poppins. Hey, you didn't say anything about
That
it.
goes
Say
for you
anything.
too.
Too late. Can't change the.
You can't change the rules.
You're making us get off on a tangent.
Anyways,
Yes.
so cricket.
Mm-hmm.
So easiest to say. Those of you who've watched Downton Abbey have seen some bit of cricket. You at least have seen them get into their uniforms.
Yeah.
And you've seen the pitch. But unless, like I said, you're like me and you practically subscribe to BritBox, you probably haven't seen a whole lot of it. Okay. So we went in search, Gina and I, of finding all these things out because when I saw in the show, I can't remember the name of it, but it's on Paramount Plus. There's this lady who's American who married into British nobility.
Oh,
and
that's the one you showed me.
Yeah,
Okay.
she does all these trips to other British castles to show how they're trying to survive, because the castles are very much underwater. Not literally, financially.
Yeah, clarify that.
Financially. And so in one of the shows, she plays in a cricket match.
Mm-hmm.
And they're teaching her the rules. And that's when you go, wait, what?
Oh, is it the American Aristocrat's Guide to Great Estates? I had to say that
Yes.
slowly. It's a lot.
Yes. So that was the moment when I really kind of paid attention because they were breaking down the rules compared to watching the little bit of gameplay that they have in all of these dramas.
Right.
Because it's kind of like the difference between watching a tutorial on YouTube on how to play baseball compared to watching a television show where, you know, the star child of the show is a little league star. You know, you get to see like a half an inning or something that's being played.
Right. Or maybe an at-bat.
Right. So we'll start with the basics, the things that are the same.
Because you know what? It's surprising. Like, you have to think of it in American terms, but when you put an American spin on it, you're like, oh, okay, it's pretty much the same thing.
So there are things that are the same or things that are the same term that are slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So cricket is a ball and bat game. We'll start there. Very
Yes.
simple, right? The ball is different than a baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know that funky stitch pattern that a baseball has? Cricket ball does not have that. It's just two semicircles sewn together in the middle.
And I didn't even realize that.
It's a single seam.
Weird.
It is what it is, right?
It's Britain. Go ahead.
The balls are also denser and harder than a baseball
Yeah.
and a little bit smaller. Okay, what is he over there laughing at? He was looking at his phone and then he just starts laughing. So,
You better not be laughing at the fact that she keeps saying balls, because I'm going to punch you if you are.
Oh my God, is he like 5?
I think he's not quite that old yet mentally. I question it sometimes.
Eli, how old are you now?
I'm about 6 years old. You know.
Yeah, 36 minus 30. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
So
I'm really holding in this British. You better stop it.
the bat is also different from our bat.
Way different.
So Eli, when I say the word bat, what do you think of?
Cricket or just in general?
In
Just in
general.
A Louisville Slugger.
So
Very American
Just
thing to say. Yes.
describe it.
A long piece of wood.
A long piece of wood with shape.
More of like not an octagon, but
Like a cylinder.
like a cylinder.
Like
yeah.
a
a
long-
really long cylinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
With like
It's
a
very
handle on the end, right?
Spherical with a handle.
But when I think of cricket, I think of a paddle.
Yeah, so cricket bats are more like a paddle.
Mm-hmm.
Cricket bats are always made out of hickory.
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
know it was specifically hickory. Why? Did you find... Listen,
hickory?
people, there is so much information
Hold
about
on.
cricket. We're trying to be patient.
I was gonna say.
I didn't
am
get to that part in my
remembering this
research.
right as well. No, it's willow. It's always made out of willow.
Ooh,
Willow is very springy,
that's what I was about to say. Flexible, flexible.
springy and flexible.
I can see that.
So the bats have specific measurements, and we can get into that later. But they're always made out of willow, and they are flat on one side, and the other side is bulged out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that there's a specific hitting edge to your bat.
Yes.
Okay? So, bat, ball, same terminology, slightly different things.
Right. As far as like how they're structured, what they're
Right.
made of, such and such and such.
Then we get into some of the trickier things. So we have batters. Since we have a bat, we have
Right.
batters. The name for a batter in cricket is a batsman.
Listen. It sounds so like, what's the word I'm looking for? It sounds very like genteel. He's a batsman, not a batter. Batter is for like, you know, the poor people. We're batsmen.
Well, what they will tell you is batter is what you make a cake out of. He is a batsman.
I mean, it's so logical, it's funny.
Okay. And there's actually two batsmen on the field, on the pitch at the same time.
Right. And if you hear us use these terms interchangeably, the pitch is essentially the main part of the field.
Yes.
It's like the pitcher's mound to the batting box, essentially.
It's actually like the infield.
Okay, that's a good way to describe it.
It's like the infield.
Yeah.
It's where most of the play happens. And we'll get into like describing the pitch in a minute.
Right.
But,
We just want to give you some parallels.
and give you some ideas of what we're looking at and talking about.
Mhm.
So there are always two batsmen on. One is termed the striker. So Eli, if
Yeah, you
I
gotta pay
called you
attention.
a striker, what do you think your job is on the field?
Pitcher?
No,
No.
if I called you the striker,
No clue.
you are the batsman that is actually swinging the
You're
bat.
striking,
You're
the
striking
ball.
the ball. The second batsman is called the non-striker.
which means
Pitcher?
That you're on the other side,
Oh,
not
okay.
striking the ball. So there's
there's always two
always
on the
two
field.
on the field.
One
Okay.
is actually swinging and the other is standing there waiting.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the bowler.
Okay, take a guess at that one.
Pitcher.
That is
There
the
you
pitcher.
go.
There you
So
go.
that's your parallel. We're going to ask you questions, so
And-
you better pay attention.
And funny enough, they actually do have lots of different terms for different types of pitchers
yes, they do.
and pitches and stuff. And I tried to get into it and I couldn't
Don't
figure
do
out
it, Amy. Don't do it.
because you have to know, like, I would have to watch the videos to be able to figure out what some of these are because they don't talk about like the path of the ball, like in American baseball, where when you're talking about a curveball, you're talking about a
Right.
ball that curves, or a knuckleball, where you're talking about a ball that you pitch using your knuckles.
Right.
There, it all has to do with what direction the spin on the ball is and where the release on the ball is, and
Right.
their terminology didn't make enough sense to me reading it. I would have to watch several videos to try to get it.
Like the seam one, and there's like, I don't know.
So there's like a googly, and
I missed that one. Look at Eli's face. Like, what? This
Yeah.
is nonsense.
so a googly is a ball from the leg spinner which spins the other way.
Do you see why we need to watch videos? I hadn't left my notebook, but I'll make
I
a
have-
note to myself to try to find some videos of these things.
Absolutely no idea what a leg spinner is, so
Girl.
I don't know what this means as far. But I'm like, but it's a googly or a dibbly dobbly
It's not real.
is a medium to slow moving bowler.
So I'm looking at the terms cricket. What the heck?
Okay, hold on.
Oh, it
We're
gets
getting
better.
we're getting to some of these, okay? But like I said,
We got to
Um,
start slow.
we got to start slow. I don't want to get too much into how crazy the language is because we're still talking about the bowler
Just the
and
basics of the sport. We haven't even gotten to that. This is just understanding who's all on the infield at this, or the pitch at this moment.
By the way, for those of you who want to follow along, there is a very great basics of cricket explanation from the Chicago Tribune that you can look up. I
I'll
don't know
post it.
why they had this basics of cricket that they posted in 2015,
so
but it's
random.
great.
Like, of all things to post. You said it was a Chicago Tribune, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, this is where I think it might actually be helpful to get into, like, the way the field looks.
Yeah.
Because you have to kind of imagine, and we'll post pictures so that you can look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But, so, there's truly no definition for what the full field of play is supposed to look like.
Which is so weird to me.
There is a defined amount of area, but it could be a circle, it could be an oval, it could be a square.
And all they ask is that it's denoted on the outside.
Yeah, all you have to have is an out of bounds line.
Yeah, it gets that random.
Okay, but in the middle of that field of play is what's known as the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, that would be like your infield.
And
okay?
that's universal.
It's universal. It's a universal size. It's 10 feet across by 66 feet long. And yes, at some point I will probably switch back to meters because other articles I have are in meters.
Yeah. Sorry, we're American.
Those of you who need the conversion, a meter stick is just slightly longer than a yardstick. Okay.
So if you ever gotten hit with a yardstick.
Or if you know your football yards and all that.
Exactly.
Just think about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, that was such a nicer way to put that because, I've gotten whacked across the head with a yardstick before.
So, the pitch is usually dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got several lines on it. There's a line for the batsman. They have to be within a certain box. The bowler has to be behind a certain line when they start their pitch, and they have to stay behind a different line at the end of their pitch.
Yeah.
And the wicket keeper has to be behind a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, the only people wearing padding on the teams are the batsman,
And the wicket
the wicket keeper, and possibly if there is another fielder that's close enough to the batsman that they might get struck.
Because I read an article where, like, the first reported, like, somebody died. Like, the first reported incident in cricket, somebody died from accidentally getting hit with a pitch. Because some of these pitches, man.
Well, they're the same as baseball pitches.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, did you see the Little League thing the other day?
No. What little league thing?
Young man got hit, beamed with a pitch.
Ooh.
And
in Little League?
Yeah.
How hard was this kid throwing? How hard was the kid throwing?
Well, I mean, these are like the Little Leagues going to the Little League
World Series. Oh.
And so, I mean, he was down for a bit. He got up. He seemed okay. Like, a little while later, he came back out and he gave the pitcher who hit him a hug because he was just losing it. The pitcher that accidentally hit him.
There.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was incredible.
It's weird. Sometimes you don't realize kid athletes, like, that is a very traumatic experience. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's stressful enough to be an athlete, but to be a kid who's not quite at the maturity level to understand, like, that wasn't on purpose. It was an accident. Like, and he's probably like, I'm going to get in so much trouble.
Okay. So.
Prayers to that little guy and good sportsmanship. Absolutely,
yes.
Dr. Robinson.
So, getting back on track.
Mm-hmm. We didn't go that far off the rails.
No, we didn't. But the marks on the pitch are called creases.
Which, for a second, it took my brain a moment to realize. Like, I kept reading articles. I was like, what the hell is a crease?
She's sitting there going, do they pleat the field?
Like, are they pressing into the dirt? Like, I don't... When they described the field, it was like, they kept saying, like, there are certain lines, and then they switched to crease. And I'm like, so is there a difference? I don't understand. But I got it. Okay.
So, the creases are actually the areas in between the lines. So, you've got the popping crease.
Which I still don't quite understand what that is, but we'll get
which
there.
Which is also called the batting crease.
Ah, okay.
So, the popping crease is because as a bats person, you have to be in this area. It's kind of like the batter's box.
Right.
Okay. You're looking to pop the ball. So that's the other thing that's really different. Eli, do you know how to swing a cricket bat?
I believe it's like an uppercut, like an uppercut motion.
Yeah, so you are not swinging like you would swing a bat.
Like over your shoulder.
Right.
It stays down by the ground. And we should probably talk about this. The wickets are behind the batter.
Yes.
The wickets are actually more important to the game than almost anything else.
So really quickly, let's talk about what the wicket is, because that is essentially a part of the field that is absolutely important. Were you getting there after you do the creases?
Yeah, I was going to do but
Okay.
but that's just because this is how the articles are laid out.
Yeah, no,
but
it makes sense.
We totally can just jump to the wickets because in order to understand how the batters bat, you have to understand the wickets.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. The wickets, which are 3 posts put into the ground with, again, this thing that looks kind of like a yarn bobbin.
Yeah.
Right? Something off of a spinning wheel is what it really looks like. Although, again, pickup games, you can put anything across it, just as long as the stick sits on top of the 3 sticks in the ground.
Right.
The bowler isn't actually trying to pitch you something you can hit. He's trying to hit the wicket. As the batter, you're batting to protect the wicket.
So think of it as like a hockey goalie is not actually trying to like catch the puck. He's trying to protect the goal. So essentially the wickets are the goal, and he's the goalie trying to protect the wickets from getting knocked over by the pitcher or the bowler.
So my next question would be, what happens if the batsman misses?
If the ball hits the wicket
Right.
and knocks the piece off the top, which is called bail, a bail,
B-A-L-E.
B-A-I-L, bail.
Oh, bail, like bail. Okay, like bail bond.
Yeah, like, you're getting bailed out of jail.
Oh, man, that's what we can. That's all we have to compare it to. When you get bailed out of jail, it's the same thing.
So the bails that are on top of the wicket, if the wicket is hit and the bail is knocked off, then you're automatically out. Okay. Now we'll get into like the innings and the outs and all of that in a while.
Right.
But that is like the main goal as a batsman is to keep the ball from hitting the wicket.
And that's the biggest difference between baseball and like cricket. Like we want to hit the ball and just get it as far out as they can. It doesn't matter how far the ball goes per se, as much as getting that wicket knocked down. If you can get it knocked down, then they're automatically out. It's like a strikeout.
Mm-hmm. So the popping crease, like I said, is called that because when you do that uppercut motion with the bat, it's a pop.
Like a pop fly?
Yes.
Okay.
So the marks in front of the batting crease or the popping crease mark the area where the batter is no longer safe from being run out. Which is a lot like being run out in baseball or tagged out at a base.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then there are what they call the return creases, which are the lines that run along the side of the pitch.
Like a miniature sideline.
Yes. They are a sideline, but they only go from the popping crease to the back end of the pitch. So they're not along the entire length of the pitch.
Right.
They only mark out basically the sides of that batting box. Then you have the bowling crease, which is behind the popping crease.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the bowler has to be behind as he starts his pitch.
Right.
Or his bowl. They actually do call them bowls.
Yeah.
We're
just going to use pitch because it makes more sense.
It makes more sense to us. Especially since looking at it, in my head, if I'm bowling, I'm pitching underhand like softball.
Exactly.
But these are actually overhand pitches. And they're very specific. You cannot actually bend your elbow.
Oh, wait. I didn't see. You got to keep it straight?
It has to be a straight arm.
Wow.
As it comes up over.
Ooh. That shoulder. That's all I can think. We worry about tennis elbow.
So here you have like Tommy John's an elbow for most of our pitchers.
Right.
Because they've got that quick snap at the end.
Exactly.
There it's all shoulder motion.
Would that be a stronger pitch?
I honestly don't know.
That just makes me
I think
wonder.
it just whips.
Yeah.
So,
really quick, let's talk about that real fast because it made me think of it when you said it. When there's two, isn't there two of each of those lines on either side of the pitch, right? Because we'll talk about that, but they'll eventually switch sides. So just keep in mind there's a pitcher's
all of the markings on one end of the pitch are also on the other end of the pitch.
Because eventually play switches sides.
Yes.
We'll get to that, but I just want to point that out.
Yeah. So the very last thing to think about is that, your wicket keeper is going to be kind of behind that bowling line, because they want to be able to, if the ball makes it past the batter, but doesn't actually hit the wicket, they want to be able to catch it and knock the wicket, because that's one of the ways you can get somebody out.
Oh, so okay. I was thinking about when I was reading the article, I was thinking about the wicket keeper as the pitcher, but he can actually catch it and knock the wicket down himself?
Yes, so the wicket keeper,
interesting,
who's back behind, that's kind of like the catcher.
Exactly.
He actually gets all the same padding as an American catcher.
Right.
If he catches the ball, he can knock the wicket down. The pitcher, the bowler, can actually do the same thing. If somebody fields a fly, he can then, or somebody fields the ball and throws it in. If he can knock a wicket before the runner gets to the safe mark, then they're out.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So, I mean, like I said, we can totally get into all of that. But other than the pitch, nothing on the field of play is marked.
Nope.
Okay. Should we talk about uniforms a little bit?
I guess we can.
Uniforms are always white.
Which is just like Britain. I don't know if it's a whole Puritan thing.
Well, no, traditionally the ball has always been red.
So
your uniforms are always white so you can see the red ball.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you're watching a Village play, they're probably both going to be teams in white. Okay? It's not like you have to be able to tell the difference between the teams, because it's not like, it's football and there's lots of interaction there.
Yeah, no, honestly, the only two people on would they be the defense in this case? The only two people on the offense are the two batters that are out there. The rest of them are all the other team. They're the defense. So they're the fielders, they're the bowler, the wicket keeper. And it's all, 11 players?
11 players on each team.
So all 11 on the defense are out there, and only the two batters from the offense are out there at any one inning. We'll talk about that.
So the only time you have uniforms that are, quote, team colors is if you're playing games that may go into the night, where you would be using the white balls because they're easier to see at night.
And I thought it was also because you really only see that in like tournament play, like international, when you're representing like your country or something like that, when they do play international games.
It probably does. It says here just traditionally that those are the only times.
Makes sense.
Truthfully, until they had artificial lights and fields, they wouldn't have played night games anyways.
Very true. Touche, ma'am. Touche.
I mean, I know a lot of school districts that don't play nighttime football because they
still
don't have
lights.
Field lights.
Which is, it's so crazy to think in this day and age, like something so basic would still be such a rarity, and like teams would have to share fields. I mean, I get there's a cost associated with it, and that's the big thing, but it just seems like, why not at this point,
So, the uniforms are just long pants and a shirt and shoes.
They are so basic. Like, there's no bedazzle, no nothing to it. It looks very clean.
And most of the time, if you're watching your British television, there's also some sort of sweater vest.
Dorks.
They wear a jumper.
They're nerds.
The uniforms are always white or off-white.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes the jumper is so that they can tell the difference between the teams. So, you might have one that has an all-white jumper and one that might be like a white and off-white stripe or something like that.
Right. Just something to distinguish for the people that are keeping score or whatever.
Right. I mean, we all know which team is whatever, but, I mean, it's kind of like shirts and skins, right?
Right. Exactly. Same concept.
So that's really, again, like the only thing about their uniforms. I mean, they really are very, very simple.
Yes. There is nothing to and I don't know if that's just like a whole we as Americans are just so flashy, and like compared to them, like they're just so clean and basic and simple.
No, because if you've seen their soccer uniforms,
okay, that's true. Maybe just because of the type of sport that it is.
I think it's because of the type of sport it is.
And the legacy it has.
More of a feeling of like fencing.
Yeah. Oh, like, okay. I can see that. I can see that. Okay, that makes sense.
So
they do. Oh, let's point that out too. The batters do wear actual helmets. I mean, we talked about a little bit of that, but they do wear leg pads. They do wear an actual, it looks like a baseball helmet. So I think it has a cage on it.
It's kind of like how there are some batters in the U.S. that have like the extra stuff on it because they stand real close to the batter's box or real close to home plate.
Mm-hmm.
So like you'll see the batter that has like all the guards down his arm and everything in the U.S.
True.
Because they are so they are basically in front of the wicket.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody might ask, if the goal is to protect the wicket and they're basically standing in front of it, can't they just body block?
Right.
No. That's actually what is called a leg out.
Isn't it like a LB something? It's like
I don't know what the actual leg out is. The actual term. I don't know what the coding is for the score box.
Got it.
So they have like 27 ways of being out. Most of them are only important to the box score.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you know,
like if you're just watching it, right?
But they have to mark things in particular ways for the box score.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where things get complicated.
Dun, 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 get ready.
There are slightly different rules for different levels and types of play.
Mm-hmm.
You can play traditional play. You can play what's called either 20-20 or T20 play, which is a quick play.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm trying to remember what the name is for the extended play.
Oh, the test.
Yes,
testing.
Or test play.
Which it confused me for a minute because I was like, practice play? Like the word test made me think.
No, but like test as in I am putting my all out on the line to prove that I am the best ever.
And they really are, because that's insane.
It will go on for 6 days sometimes.
And I'm just like...
6 days, Eli.
Just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
But in general... I did that on purpose. I was the news person straightening their papers. In general... The innings are 1 or 2 innings per game per team.
Listen, I want
and innings is always a plural.
The fact that I was reading this article and it kept saying innings, I'm like, are we talking about multiple or one? I'm so confused. They call it doesn't matter if it's one inning, like in our baseball, or if it's all innings with an S. So you constantly, my brain couldn't pick it up.
Yes, the first innings. Yes.
Jesus.
Most of the time, especially in like village play, which is also a slang term for like mediocre play.
That's so rude.
So in England, they have like cricket clubs, and they've been around for hundreds of years, and there's lots of story to them. And every village has a club. And back in Downton Abbey days, you would usually have a club for the village, and then they would play against the grand house. And so the house and the housemaids and not the maids because they weren't really playing, but the valets and the
working class folks.
Yeah, all the people that worked at the house,
mm-hmm.
And the family members would field a team for the house.
Right.
And then they would go up against the village, but yes, village is a term for mediocre play. But usually in your village play, you're going 1 inning.
Yeah.
The thing you have to remember is that in cricket, an inning could take 4 hours.
And to understand why that is.
An inning
Oh, you got the segue. Look at you. I didn't even have to look at you for that one.
An inning goes until you have all 10 batsmen out. So there are 11 people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get 10 outs for the inning to be over
Before you
because then there's not enough people left to be the non-striker and the striker.
Right. So essentially, you have to whittle it down until there's only one player that could actually play. So,
yes. So, and here's the thing. It's while there are 3 million ways to get a batter out, it's actually not as easy as it seems.
it really isn't. It takes a lot of work to get a batter out. Like,
the scores in a cricket match can be in the hundreds.
because essentially this is how you score. So the whole point is to try to score as many runs as possible. And in baseball, we think of runs as like you get all the way around to the all the bases. In this case, in cricket, because you have, remember we said we have 2 batters. Once somebody hits the ball, the 2 batters run back and forth. And every time they cross over that batting crease, isn't it right?
Mm-hmm.
Every time they cross that batting crease, it counts as a point.
As long as they both make it back to that batter's box for the most part. And that's where they're considered safe.
Right.
As long as they both make it back, it's a run. And then if they cross back the other way and the first striker winds up back where he started, that's a second run.
Right.
And if they hit it out far enough,
That's a lot of running back and forth.
so, right. Now, here's the thing. If you hit a ball out of bounds, okay, it's not like we think of here where out of bounds is like a bad thing.
Right.
It just means that you're not playing until they get the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's kind of like a home run,
Right, exactly.
but they get 6 automatic points. 6 automatic points.
Is that on top of them continuing to run back and forth, or is that just...
no.
Got
If it's
it.
out of bounds, the referee signals,
And then they just get those 6
They get
points.
those 6 points.
Okay.
If it goes out of bounds on a bounce, they get 4.
It's like tennis with the bouncing.
By the way, when the bowler bowls, it doesn't have to go straight to the batter. It actually can bounce at least once.
Ah.
It is allowed to bounce once before the batter.
Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense because it's almost like they're always throwing ground balls. So it's inevitable that that's going to happen.
So they have this thing called an over for the bowlers.
Which confused the heck out of me. I was so
Any
confused
guesses,
through most
Eli?
of this.
Any guesses?
No clue.
He
I
just
don't-
looked at me. He's like, "What the hell is an over?"
I don't even blame you for saying that because when I read it, I was like, okay, I get the innings. I got that. I'm with it. What the heck is an over?
So an over is like a pitch count for the bowler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Each bowler can only bowl 6 pitches before they have to be replaced. But then they can come back
Mm-hmm.
after the next guy hits all of his so basically you can have 2 bowlers on a team
Yeah,
just interchanging
back and forth.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So in that way, it's a little bit like the rules where, like, if you get a concussion or you get a head injury in football, or you you have to, your helmet pops off in football, you have to sit out the next play,
Right.
right? If you go to the sideline in between plays as a quarterback in football, you have to sit out the next play,
Right.
and then you can come back in. So that's kind of but they basically it's a way of giving that shoulder a rest.
You have to. Because if you think about how long those games can go, and that's the
So-
short play. It's 4
Right.
hours.
So once the bowler has bowled 6 times, an over is declared. At the over, a bowler must be replaced with a new bowler.
Mhm.
Bowlers can't bowl consecutive overs, but they can rotate back in.
So you can't do 6 and then another 6 and then another 6 and then another 6.
Right.
Not like in baseball where that pitcher could just stay out there until they start to lose gas or they get injured
Right.
or whatever.
And where I'm a little confused is because in one article it said they can't bowl more than 6 times in one direction. And the other one said more than 6 times, period.
See, that's the one I read was the
So-
one just more than 6 times consecutively. And then, like, you can actually have them move to the other end of the pitch and be the bowler on that end.
So, because what happens is, okay, you're the striker.
Right.
You hit the ball, and you trade places with the non-striker.
Mm-hmm.
So, at that point, the non-striker becomes the
The
striker.
striker. Right. You change
So-
positions.
I've always, like, I guess there's parts of the rules that have them change direction as far as the bowler goes and turn around and go the other way. So I have to, like, I'm like, I know I read it. I can't remember where it is.
There's just so much information on this. Like,
Look, I've got pages that are, like, almost completely highlighted. So,
you might as well just hide the whole article.
so the striker, like I said, can change places, and there can be different strikers during a particular over. So that's one of those things where we're like, what?
But
Because we don't get it.
When you logically think about it, though, like, he's over. His turn is over after he's done 6 pitches.
Well, and the whole thing where, like, the strikers change, and, like, you're batting to one person, and then you're batting to a different person.
Which for the bowler has to be tricky because it's the same bowler for those 6 overs, no matter who's actually the striker. So you have to almost know. It's like if you had in baseball, if you had 2 batters who kept switching out, but the pitcher always had to keep adjusting their pitch because you kept changing the batter.
Right. So
Confusing.
Let me tell you.
Confusing.
So I have a list of ways
That you score.
that you score. So I'm trying to, like, make sure all my pages are in the right order over here.
Let me get to
'cause I
my
don't think
scoring
they
too.
are.
And we can go into a little bit more
Okay.
detail about what each of these types of scores are because they do mean things.
Okay, so let's go back to the different forms too.
Okay.
Because I knew I had it highlighted here someplace.
It's like when you have an open book test and you're like, where's the answer in the book?
Well, and my pages got all out of order, so I'm like, page 11, page 14.
Page 25.
Right.
And I will say that when you score points, it's called a dismissal. Like when the batter gets out, I guess you could say it's called a dismissal. That's what the blanket term for all of these different ways you can get somebody out is called. I did find that, which was interesting.
That is interesting because I did not even see that on the International Cricket page.
Oh, yeah.
So, short forms of cricket, a set number of overs are allowed to each team per inning. And once that number is reached, the inning ends even if they haven't finished all 10 outs. So that's where you get, like, 20-20.
Yeah, the quick play.
They have a maximum of 20 overs per inning.
Got it.
So as soon as you hit that 20, that number of 20 overs,
Right.
then it doesn't matter if the other team still has all of their players on the field.
That's
You
it.
are done.
Time to switch. Innings start over with the other team.
Yes. But yes, as we said, in Test cricket, there's unlimited number of overs per inning.
Lord. So and this is dependent on when you get everybody out.
Yep. And once innings end, the fielding team and batting team switch roles, and the innings for the fielding and batting team begins. So
I can see you trying to figure out where to go and how to like put this into words that make sense.
it is kind of a crazy thing, because we're not used to thinking in these terms.
Mm-hmm.
Test cricket games last a maximum of 5 days.
I can't imagine. That's like a baseball game with unlimited innings. You know, like overtime to the max.
Right. So, like, we think it's crazy when we wind up with like a 14 or 15
Right.
inning baseball game that goes to 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Right. And how rare is that?
But they limit the number of hours played during each day. So they can only play 6 hours each day for up to 5 days.
6 straight hours of cricket. Like, what per?
Now, here's the thing I will say. From what I've watched on TV, at least in village play,
Okay.
when the innings is over, they take a tea break.
How very British to take it to play that hard and go let's go have a cup of tea.
Did you see him? He was like all flustered. He's like, "Oh my god, she did it again!"
I told you.
No, but it took him 15 minutes to find the bell.
But tell me that's not the British thing to do. Like, this, like, on the 7th inning stretch, if they just came around with a cart and was like, tea, how many lumps of sugar?
Well,
like,
no, it's more like going in for halftime.
Okay.
It's more like going in for halftime.
They have a tea break. Oh, Lord. I'm so American sometimes.
But again, if an inning can be like 2 hours.
Yeah. I need more than tea. Give me a Gatorade. Give me, like, some...
And this leads into one of the ways that a player can be out.
Okay.
One of the ways a player can be out is if the batter in front of him was declared out, and the player doesn't make it to the pitch within 2 minutes. So imagine you're sitting there, and this guy's been batting for like 10 minutes, and you're like, man, I gotta pee.
No, what? So you only have 2 minutes between the guy getting out and you getting up to get ready to bat. Oh, man.
And then they have what's called a timed out.
Don't have to pee it off to the side.
Does anybody see me over here?
Hey, yeah. Walden, cover me.
Walden?
It's the most British name I could think of on the fly.
Anyways, but T20, 2020 cricket usually only takes a couple of hours to complete.
Yeah.
Because you've put that limit. My guess is that what we would consider little league cricket, children's cricket,
got it.
probably uses fewer overs. Also, because you want to save the kid's arm.
Right, poor babies. Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, I think we've talked about the wickets pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think that's all taken care of. I'm getting my papers back in order, people. Because at one point in time, they went flying.
Yeah, they did. It was hilarious.
Mainly because I was making fun of
Dr.
Eli.
Robinson over there. Because it's so fun.
But, okay, so we're finally getting to, like, the meat and gravy here. The outs.
Right.
By the way, Dr. Robinson, what is our time point?
I was about to say, how far into this can we really get right now?
We got about we're at 47 minutes.
47 minutes.
So we've got about 10 minutes. Okay.
Well, let's just talk about let's list them, and then we can go into detail in the next episode.
Right. Well, because
some of these actually
ways to get extra runs.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So we'll list the most common types, and then we'll flesh it out next time.
Because some of them are going to be similar.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
Of course, we've already talked about the wickets, and if the wicket is knocked down, if the bail is knocked down, the wicket is hit, then you're automatically out.
Right. Makes purpose. This is just like getting a strikeout.
Yes.
And, if you need a comparison.
So I have a list here of the, quote, more technical outs that can happen.
Okay.
And these are all decided by the umpires.
Oh, that's people we didn't talk about. There are actual umpires on the field. There's 2, right?
At least 2, sometimes 3.
So there's one that stands by the actual, I think the umpire is behind the bowler. And there's one that's out on the field, not too far away from the
boundary lines.
The boundary lines of the striker. I have to think of these terms because I want to call them like the batter. That's not the right. I'm going to use the right terms. And then there's sometimes a third one kind of out in the outfield somewhere. So there are umpires just like there are in baseball.
So the one that most people focus on is the one with the bowler because he's the one who declares whether or not a pitch is legal or illegal.
Right.
the one behind the striker is generally there to say whether or not the wicket was knocked.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So you can be caught out. Okay. You want me to just name them?
Yeah, just name them
Okay.
all. Just name them all. Like I said, we'll flesh it out.
Okay. So you can be caught out.
Mm-hmm.
You can be taken out for handling the ball.
Take a guess, Eli.
I'm
just curious.
I'm just looking.
I'm
at
just
Eli's
curious.
Face. I was looking at Eli's face just because I knew what his face was going to say to me. I knew it. So
Come on,
so,
you 6-year-old.
For those of you who don't know, Eli is sitting there like a giggling 13-year-old because I said handling the balls.
Go ahead, laugh, because you know what you want to.
Okay, so we've already talked about a leg out, but there's also one for obstructing the field. You can be called out for hitting the ball twice.
Now that one I didn't know.
Again, we talked about the timed out.
Right.
So those are the main technical ways of being called out.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make sure. So there's also a run out.
Which we talked about a little bit already.
Yeah, I mean, so we can, talk about that a little bit more next time and flesh it out. But yeah, those are like kind of the main ways. And again, there are still more. These were just, the
common ones.
Common ones that they listed. And even then they said, some of these happen almost never at higher levels of play and only happen when you're playing, little league or village play or high school play or whatever. And like I said, then, we have ways to get extra runs and,
that's a whole show by itself. Just how do you score points in cricket? And it's so this is where it starts to get really complicated because in baseball, you can only score one way. You can either, it's a very finite number of ways to score in baseball. In this one, there's so many specifics that go into it. Even just how you win a full game depending on the type of competition play you're in. Do you base it off of runs? And it's based off the last team at bat. And it's it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, well, and, it's really one of those things where, I can look at, I'm not going to lie. I went to Britannica.com.
That says a lot.
The Encyclopedia Britannica.
That's a lot.
28 pages.
Lord.
Of information.
I had to take a TV break. When I was reading this, I was just my brain needs a break from trying to understand what all these terms mean. Aren't you guys glad we did this for you?
So, before we go, just a few unique facts that I have found. As we were talking about test match and how long they can take, the longest male test cricket match of all time was between England and South Africa. It lasted 43 hours and 16 minutes.
What? Almost 2.
The game took place in March of 1939 and was abandoned because the ship taking home the England team was due to leave.
So they literally had to stop playing because they were going to get stranded.
Hey guys, gotta go. My ride's here.
My mom's waiting outside in the parking lot. See you guys tomorrow.
Another unique feature of cricket is the 40-minute lunch break between the first 2 sessions of a day's play.
Wow.
Additionally, after the second session of play, there is a 20-minute break allotted for tea.
That dang on tea.
So again, if you're playing, 2 innings, meaning that each team gets to bat twice.
Right.
After the first inning, or
innings with an S.
After the first innings, you get a break, basically. You get a 40-minute lunch break.
I feel like you kind of need it.
Look, I thought it was crazy when I was watching some of these shows and the score was like 153-0.
Right.
And I was like, what?
How is that even possible? How? But then you start to...
6 runs at a time.
Exactly. Then you're like, oh, okay. I got it.
And even though teams have 11 men on the field, they generally have a 12th man who is a substitute in case someone gets hurt.
Cool. And that was another question I had. I'm glad you said that. Because, you know, in football or baseball, you have this huge number of backups for every position, and some people who may play multiple positions. But I didn't realize that a cricket team was really that small, even their substitute. And I know there's a special set of rules for substitutes as well, but that's interesting that you only have one backup, so the rest of you don't get hurt.
Well, not only that, but depending on the rules that you're playing by, depending on, you know, if you're T20 or whatever,
right,
your 12th man may not be allowed to bowl or to bat, so he may only be allowed to be a fielder.
Really? I mean, I guess it makes sense because then you have to add in another person who has to be at bat.
And then a frequently asked question that was on this site was, is there a limit to the amount of runs a batter can score? And
I'm going with no.
And Mr. Eli?
What do you think?
I think it's unlimited.
It is unlimited. There's no limit on how many runs a single batter can score. The batter will continue batting until the bowler gets them out.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy. So every time you cross, boop, boop,
So,
boop.
and not only that, but if
It's like
you
Pong.
if you aren't out,
Yeah.
okay, so
Excuse me.
you keep running back and forth and whatever, and then you're not out. Say the striker gets out, or the non-striker gets out.
Yeah.
You're the striker, and you're still in the game.
Oh, so they just bring in another
They bring in
striker to replace
another
that guy that did get
non-striker.
out.
Yeah,
So I could just stay on the field unlimited amount of time, and that's
And
how I keep
he-
racking up my points.
but the bowler has a certain number of pitches.
Interesting. I think I would rather be a bowler because at least I get to go sit down 6 times and I'm done. If I'm a batter and I just don't get out for a while, like...
B.C. Lara of the West Indies holds the record for the most individual runs in one innings with 400.
Excuse me? What?
There's also not a limit of how many runs a batter can score off of one pitch.
Wow.
Typically, it's 8.
That makes sense. Because, I mean, if you wallop that bad boy out there, you can... And, I mean, 66 yards is not super, super long, so you can...
Well, yeah, exactly.
Really quick.
It's basically the distance from home plate to the pitcher's mound.
Oh, yeah, for sure you could do that. You could do that in a heartbeat.
So,
But
we're being given our symbol that it's time to wrap this episode.
we're really getting into the swing of this whole cricket thing. I mean, it's still a little confusing, but we'll get to it, and it'll start to make more sense once we get to the scoring.
I mean, if it makes sense, it means that, yeah, we'll get there.
So on that note, on behalf of myself, Amy, and Dr. Robinson, stick around for part 2 of our cricket breakdown. We're going to go in depth into scoring.
And we might hit on a little bit of history.
Yeah, we'll see. See you later, humans.